I'm sure we're all ready to receive a wonderful message from Reverend Pat Zogar. I just had a vision of all of us, because the theme for this Santa Claus parade float, if we're going to do it, is Gifts of the Spirit. And I had this vision of all of us walking along singing that song with rail on and on up on the truck. And who knows? Who knows? So affirming effectively. I like a little alliteration to you. Affirming effectively. But you know what? All of our affirmations are effective. You know, you've heard the saying, sometimes all prayers are answered, only sometimes the answer is no. That's true. And it's the same with our affirmations. They're all effective. Sometimes we know immediately that they're effective because we produce in our experience that which we think we said we wanted. You know? We had a communications workshop a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about 93% of our communication is actually nonverbal. When we're talking to someone, it's our body language, it's our eye contact, it's the facial expression, it's the nostrils flaring, it's the eyebrows raised. It's 93% of that is nonverbal. So even when we're saying our affirmations in our own head to ourselves, there's a whole segment of it we don't even know we're saying. Right? Because there's that little voice under that argues with us all the time. When I say I'm beautiful and successful, and it's, oh yeah, who do you think you are? And you know, that stuff that goes on. So our affirmations are actually being effective. Because it's the law of the universe to respond to what we say. And the law doesn't say I'm going to respond to the good ones. I'm going to respond to the ones she knows she's thinking. The law just responds. You know, when I first got into New Thought, I used to try and explain it to people by saying it's the power of positive thinking taken to the nth degree. And it is, but it's also the power of negative thinking taken to the nth degree. Because again, infinite mind does not distinguish, doesn't judge a thought to be powerful, positive, or negative. It just responds to it. So all of our affirmations are setting the universe, the infinite mind, in motion. As you know, I like reading dictionaries. And an affirmation is a solemn and formal declaration. And the dictionary says, not under oath. Well, the infinite mind doesn't care if we say it under oath or under our breath. It responds to everything we say to ourselves. The infinite mind is just automatically responding to it. So every affirmation and every thought is actually a self-fulfilling prophecy. Everything we think we are actually creating to ourselves. So if we're lying to ourselves, trying to convince ourselves that we're beautiful, successful, and all that stuff, and we don't really believe it, that's not affirming, that's wishing. Right? And effective, in the dictionary, effective is acting or producing with a minimum of waste or effort. Well, I like that. Right? So we can do our affirmations with a minimum of waste or effort. That's what makes them effective. Minimum of waste or effort. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but I was raised in a society that felt effort was a good thing. Yeah? Struggle, good thing. Yeah? Right? And those people who just cruise through life accepting everything they want with no struggle and effort can't possibly be as good as we strugglers now, can they? Are you willing to have that be different? Are you willing to be okay with not struggling for what you need and want? Just declaring? Every time we think, we make an affirmation. So an effective affirmation is thinking and talking to ourselves consciously and effectively. Do you ever talk to yourself? I often wonder when I'm talking to myself, who is it that's really talking to who? You know, because when I think I'm talking to myself, it's really my mother talking to a kid 60 years ago. You know what I'm saying? I say, who was that? What we want to do with our affirmations is get conscious about who it is that's talking. That it's our highest self talking to our present now. That's what an affirmation is for. With our affirmations, we tend to get caught up with history. We tend to let ourselves be affected by what the percentages are, what the odds are, how many times it's ever happened before, and all that stuff. And an affirmation is actually creating a now. So we want to reprogram ourselves so that we become conscious and confident in our capability to create, because we are always creating. There's a fellow named Philip Adam who said, a little quote here, "When people say to me, 'How do you do so many things?' I often answer them without meaning to be cruel, 'How do you do so little?' It seems to me that some people have vast potential. All people have vast potential. Most people can do extraordinary things if they have the confidence or take the risks. Yet most people don't. They sit in front of the telly and treat life as if it goes on forever." And I believe that the reason we're paralyzed into that life of inactivity is we just don't know. We're just not confident. We don't know we can do it. Right? We've been brought up with all these doubts about ourselves and our lack of self-worth and how we're not good enough and who do you think you are and aren't you getting too big for your britches and all that stuff. And we don't know that we can do it. And so we sit there. So the purpose of an affirmation is to remind ourselves, to build our confidence that we can do things. That's what they're for. So an effective affirmation isn't willpower, it's not pushing God, it's not begging God, any of that stuff. It's just using a natural law of the universe that responds, gives back what we put out. So it's accepting that which is already true. Because I figure the infinite being, whatever it is, has already given, before you asked, it was given. Everything that's good is already given. Therefore, God's on our side, right? Don't you just love it when the football team goes into the locker room, gets down on their knees, and asks God to help them win the football game? You know, I figure God wants those who enjoy playing football to play football and have fun. And I figure God wants those who enjoy watching football to go ahead and have fun. But I don't think God gives a darn who wins. Because God doesn't know winning. You know? It's just, well, you remember Trudy's favorite line, right? Throughout the universe, they found intelligent life forms that play to play. We're the only ones that play to win. Explains why we have more than our share of losers. Right? I figure that's what God thinks about it. So, do you ever watch boxing? Now, normally I can't stand it because I don't tolerate any violence in my space. But anyway, I did watch a boxing match one time. Young fellow named Ray Jones Jr. Do you know him? Apparently, he was quite a magnificent boxer, and he knew it. And he was defending his title, I guess. And so boxers, it's a production now. You know, they come in through the tunnel and they're shaking their heads and do. He made an entrance with a lift that came up through the boxing ring floor. And there he was with a bevy of beautiful dancers in satin capes. And he did a rock song about how magnificent he was. And then he went on and he defended his title. And then after he won, he bowed down on the corner post and he thanked God. And I'm going, oh my God, like God really cares. But I had to hand it to Ray Jones Jr. because he didn't thank God for winning the game for him. He thanked God for giving him the talent and skill. And I said, okay, there's a step up. Because God, the universe, the infinite creator, gave us all talent and skill. We all have talents and skill. And when we desire that which is already true, our talent and skill is right there to translate it into accomplishments in our lives. So affirmations, the operative word that we begin with is I am. That's an affirmation. I am. Fill in the blank. But how often do we say instead, I want, or I need? That's an affirmation too. It's creating a need. See, the universe doesn't hear when you say, I need a new car. The universe doesn't hear car. The universe hears need. And that's what we go about creating. So, sometimes we need to take a look. For instance, why do I want a car? And if I can't grasp in my mind that I can have a new car now, perhaps I can say to myself, I have an efficient, reliable, cost-effective means of transportation. Can you believe that? And if not, can you go to, I am willing to have an effective car. And if that's even hard, I'm willing to be willing. You know, make your affirmations so that you can embrace it, you can accept it, and actually own it. And then you can always add, and I know that I live in an abundant universe and that I draw all good things to me. You know, then you don't have to argue with yourself. Then you don't have to struggle to believe yourself. Now, how many people here, I don't think anybody here thinks, but a lot of people out in the world think that this universe is a really tough place. And life is a struggle, and you've got to protect yourself, and you've got to work really, really hard to just keep your head above the water, right? There's a whole lot of people who come from that ground of being. And of course, they're creating that for themselves all the time. But if we can get to, this is a generous, abundant universe with more than enough for everyone, and I am worthy and capable, you know, start to come from that place, things turn around. So there's no struggle. Struggle makes things inefficient. Do you ever go to a garage where they have the rates posted on the wall? And it says hourly rate $35. If you watch, $55. If you help, $75. You know, that's true. And that's true with our affirmations. They don't need us to stand by and watch to see that the universal mind, that infinite law of intelligence, is working on our affirmation. That law doesn't need us to check it out, to tell it how to do its work, any more than the mechanic does. In fact, sometimes we can slow it down if we're too impatient and too involved with it. So as part of letting it go, I used to plan weddings at Zogar House, which was a little deluxe resort, and I planned about 100 weddings a year. And I got really good at it, and I had a really good crew, and but man, I'll tell you, when the bride got involved, or the bride's mother, or the groom was worse, or that whole bevy of bridesmaids, they all came out to help, would slow us down so much because they wanted to do it in an inefficient way, and we already knew the way. So not only did we have to do it, we had to educate them that we knew how to do it. Sometimes you're going to have to educate yourself that you know how to do it too. Stop doubting yourself. Your affirmations might not seem all that effective at first, because you may offer yourself all sorts of negative feedback. Anybody? You might have lots of doubts about it. So we have a real tendency in our society to overthink things, don't we? We want to know why. We want to prove it scientifically. We want to be logical. We want everybody to think we're intelligent. And we think it to death. I've done that. Did that last night on stage, actually. Overthought it, missed a cue, cut out almost 4 pages of dialogue. You know, thinking too much. I knew those lines and done them 100 times, but we got into thinking. So there you go. Persevere. Your affirmations, say your affirmations until you accept it. Just by the sheer weight of repetition, it becomes believable. You know. So another pointer is to get in touch with the need that's behind what are you really looking for? You know, Oprah had a show one time with overweight teenagers, obese teenagers, and she had them look at what are they really hungry for when they're eating, what is it they really want to put into their experience? Always love. But you know, what are we really hungry for when we think we need a new car or a new relationship or a new job? You know, what is that I really need? A feeling of security? I need to be respected and acknowledged? Do I need to feel that I'm valuable? Well, if that's what your need is, the new car isn't going to change that. So your affirmation might be, I am worthy, I am efficient, I am valued in society. You know, affirmations is fake it till you make it. Create it, act as if. Another thing to watch is, how do you complete your affirmation? Do you let it go? And this is one of the big steps, is release, right? Do you release it with confidence that that immutable law that always works the same for everybody is actually at work on it, or do you think you have to wrestle the details into shape? Do you have to tell it how to come? So I like to say, I release and I accept this or something better. I love that word, something better. Because the infinite mind might have a whole different solution to make me feel worthy or accepted or acknowledged or whatever it is. So I release this or something better. Or how about I accept the outcome that provides the highest and best good for all concerned. Wouldn't that be way cool? I used to do that when I sold real estate before I went in to present an offer. Because I really would want the offer to get accepted, because then I'd get commission, right? But I would sit in the car and do a little treatment and say, I accept the highest and best for all concerned. And I let it go. Take some practice, though. Timothy Galway, who wrote the book, The Game of Inner Tennis, he talked about coaching people and how positive reinforcement is more effective than telling them what's wrong. We all know that, right? But he said there's another step. He wanted to not even tell anybody, not give his clients an analysis of their form at all, but he had them watch perfect form. So, he being perfect, of course, he would serve tennis balls and practice the swing and demonstrate the swing, and then he would have his clients do that. And he would tell them to focus their attention on the seam on the ball. Now, it really didn't matter one iota where the seam on the ball was. The trick with that was to take their mind away from thinking about it and just let their bodies go into the natural movement. I often think there's a program I love to watch now called The Voice. It's a singing competition. And last week there was a couple of young people. They say, well, you're at a bit of a disadvantage because you've been classically trained. I kind of go, huh? Because these singers coming up on these kind of shows, they've listened to it, they've seen it on the TV, they've heard it on the radio, and essentially they've mimicked it. They've pretended they were Whitney Houston and they've sung it. And they've mastered it, and then maybe they can put their own spin on it. Because it's watching how it's done right. If you go to the piano, the music teacher, and you start singing scales, that takes up a lot of time. Makes you a better technician. I used to take singing lessons, and at one time, I used to be able to sing the Queen of the Night aria. Which is, if you know it, is probably the most difficult in the repertoire because it has 2 high Fs above high C. I mean, that's up there. And I used to be able to do that sometimes. Sometimes. And I practice, and sometimes I'd get there and I'd feel really great that I made it, and sometimes I'd be real flat on those high Fs. But when I was striving for those high Fs, I never missed the high Cs. I never missed the high Cs because that was easy in comparison. Then there were a whole lot of other songs with high Cs that I couldn't sing. What is that? What is that? That striving for something else. When a child is learning to walk, these little beautiful babies just learning to walk, we celebrate that first step. We don't judge them because they can't run a marathon yet. When a child is learning to sing Let Your Little Light Shine, we don't judge them because they can't sing the Queen of the Night aria yet. It's the same with our affirmations. We'll practice our affirmations, we will have some successes, we'll see the results, and we don't judge ourselves, we just celebrate the success. Because if we were doing any affirmations, any discipline, and we are beating up on ourselves for the not quite perfects, that's what's going to be recreated, isn't it? Is the not quite perfect. So we celebrate those successes. So most of us will never run a marathon, right? So because you can't run a marathon, do you tell people, I can't run? Because you can't sing the Queen of the Night aria, do you tell people, I can't sing? But we do, don't we? We do. We can sing something. We can do a 10-kilometer run. We could do a 5-kilometer run. We could do a 1-kilometer walk. We need to stress what we can do. So we set difficult goals for ourselves, and if we make them believable to our current level of understanding and development, then the accomplishment is there, the validation is there, and then we start building on that, reinforcing. Sometimes it's hard to change our thinking, though, because we've been doing it for so long, right? Well, I have good news for you. You do not have to change your thinking. You just have to think a new thought, and the old one will disappear. Got it? See how easy that is? You just have to think a new one. And same with our habits, you know. Start taking a new way to work. After about 3 days, it's automatic, right? The old one's gone. Any of our habits. Oh, the kids are wanting to come in already. Am I late? I better. So anyway, so new thought teachers and practitioners, we've seen hundreds of healings. Some of them instant, most of them gradual. Most of them as a result of, you know, weeks and weeks and months and years of retraining our thinking, so we start to come from that place of an abundant, safe, nurturing universe instead of that place of fear. Okay, I think that's all I got to say about that. I think we need to welcome the kids back. Welcome back, kids.